and welcome to the latest episode of Southside Stories, the podcast where we talk to leaders, founders, entrepreneurs, typically in London. Sometimes we venture outside the south side of London. Lots of great topics coming up, lots of great guests coming up. So please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. But today is the world of architecture, and warm welcome to David from Design International Architects. Hi, David.
Nice to see you.
I'm just going to check actually that I have got your name correct. David, is that the right
David is
way?
perfect. Yeah,
Okay,
in
great.
Italian is Davide. So it's
Davide, yeah, of
spelled with the
course.
final E. But David, I'm
Okay,
used to it. I quite like it.
okay, great stuff. Super. Well, let's get into it, David. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's start with where are you based and what do you do?
I'm based in London, married with a couple of daughters now grown up. They are in their 20s. So probably the hard part is gone by now.
Yeah.
My
Have they
wife
gone?
is an
Have they
artist.
have they gone into architecture? Sorry to interrupt. Have they gone into
The
architecture?
younger one is gone into architecture, and so it's second
Fantastic.
year. She just finished second year, and
Brilliant.
she's already making me really proud.
Great stuff.
So I came to the country from Indonesia, actually, oddly enough,
Oh, okay.
when I met my wife
Yeah.
already as a graduated architect. That was back in 1998. Settled here, beautiful city, very green, with a straightforward mentality. So it was and actually was really nice to build up my family. Probably the most complex project was.
I,
So
I've
yeah.
got to ask you. I've got to ask you about Indonesia. How? Because I spent a lot of time in Singapore, not too far from Indonesia, but very, very different country. But how did you end up in Indonesia?
So this is a tricky one. I In Italy there was still a compulsory military service. So when
Oh,
you
okay.
turn 18, you are eligible for that. You can postpone for a number of years until you finish university, which is what I
Yeah.
did.
Uh-huh.
And then I discovered this funny law that basically allow uh, people, male people, to ask for not to do the military service
Yeah.
if you work abroad for a certain number of years.
I
So I
see.
looked for a job pretty much everywhere, and I got one in Indonesia, and that's how my career
I see.
started.
Great. And then you've been in the UK for 20 plus years, something like that.
Yeah, so it's now 27 years.
Yeah, fantastic. Um, why architecture? What inspired you to become an architect?
Uh, Possibly my father. Oddly enough, my father is has nothing to do with architecture. He's an aerospace engineer, but one of those engineers that needed to sell high-tech equipment to foreign countries. So during his travel, I always wonder where he was. He came back with the most exciting stories from South Africa, Pakistan, and so on. And that rose a lot of curiosity on my side. And I think probably being curious is one of the key features to become a good architect. You just want to know what's behind the building, what is inside, what is the story that led to it. So it's that curiosity that really um, give petrol to the work that we need to do. And so that's why I stick to my father on this one. He was really the very first inspiration, and I took it from there.
Fantastic. And have you always had your own architectural practice, or did you start in another as sort of as an employee architect? What does that look like?
I started, I guess, like most, as an employee architect in Indonesia. Was actually a very large, the largest Indonesian engineering practice with over 1,000 people. Very few architects, was a small division, so that gave me a little bit more freedom to express
Mm.
myself back then. And then again, I got a job as an employee in Design International, the practice I now run. And somehow 4 years down the line, I got this opportunity to buy out the company, and so I did.
Great. And okay, let's switch to Design International then. So tell us a little bit about your practice. What kind of architecture do you do? What kind of clients do you typically work with?
Um, the it's a practice that is really focused on public space design and mixed-use building. So it really specializes in how people flow outside and inside the building and among several buildings. So it comes from a very strong master planning background where you need to govern flows, whether they are pedestrian flows, bicycle flows, boat flows. And of course all the service deliveries and so on and so forth. And you need to govern those both horizontally to distribute them around a large site plan, but also vertically when you go multi-story buildings. So this is where the practice has its forte, if you like. And added to that, it's a practice that is really focused on creating exciting stories, experiences. So I end up doing a lot of retail and entertainment projects where people wants to shop, dine, have fun, entertain themselves, but also um, uh, free up from work. And eventually, if it's a hotel project, of course, they go for relaxation, a spa, and have a room with a vista. So it's a practice that is really focused on generating this story where the flow moves, the typology of customers and guests that visit the site or the building, and how we move them around to create that story and to let the story flow.
So let me try and I, I'm trying to visualize it in my mind, and perhaps on behalf of the listeners as well. So these sound like fairly large scale design projects. Is that right? And
Yes,
what
yes,
would
they
be,
are.
yeah, and what would be an example? I mean, I'm thinking of something like the big shopping mall in Shepherd's Bush. But what would be like a UK example, perhaps, of a large scale mixed use development?
Yeah, it would be probably a similar projects, but more integrated with the residencies around. So that's
Okay,
Westfield in Shepherd Bush or
Westfield. That's right. Sorry, I was trying to remember the name.
yeah, the
Yeah,
Shard, if you like, which is actually
yeah,
near our office. And that is
yeah.
also a project that mixed the Shangri-La Hotel on top floor, some restaurants where you can, of course, they're open to public, a viewing terrace, as well as office uses. So many companies occupy several floors. So multi-tenancy office connected to a train station and also expanding to future phases. You know, very recently, the Shard, they completed also the residential tower with some apartments that have already been sold successfully. So this is a type of very large scale mixed project. We tend to do these schemes in remote countries, so where we are seeing the exotic Western company that brings a new level of expertise or a different design approach. We have very strong British Italian hand, if you like, and of course both these countries come with a very strong design heritage. So combining the two, depending on the meeting and the client that we meet, becomes a bit of a winning formula. And so we tend to do this very large scale mixed use projects in Shanghai, in Delhi, in Cairo, Morocco, in Casablanca, Marrakesh. So these more remote places and very far apart. So that curiosity line of traveling and meeting different cultures all the time is probably creating a lot of enthusiasm in the studio. If it's a country where we never work, we give it extra careful attention. We tend to stay a little longer. So this is really the core business, but we quite like and I finish with this on this because I think it's quite relevant. We like to try and understand the DNA of the client and the company we have. So sometimes our clients ask us to design their headquarters, their office, or the office where they design particular or where they have a division, like the case of Ferrari. We almost won by chance, so I don't want to give the listeners the wrong idea. We are quite a humble practice, but by chance, the late president Marchionne, uh, who doesn't like architects at all, asked the structural engineer to say, "Don't you know some architects that nobody knows and can give it a try and design our building where we need to design the cars? Basically, where we need to put some model making rooms." And above that, some 80 designers led by Flavio Manzoni, by the head of design actually the cars that you see on the street. And he said, "Yes, I know these guys at Design International. They're quite humble. They do a lot of shopping malls. So let's give them a try." So that went well. He liked our proposition where we virtually designed the facade of the building to replicate the concept of the car, this flying motion, accelerating lines, and having a double facade with pieces of glass that are detached one from the other. So it gives you almost the idea of an explosion, that adrenaline that you feel when the turbo kicks in the car. And somehow, this building is in the middle of the factory, so it's not visible from any road outside in Maranello. But it's visible from for the people that buy the cars, because they present their tailor-made cars in this particular building. And some of our clients from the Middle East, they respond to it. They say, "Oh, I'm in your building, Davide. How exciting. I've seen the new model of the car, but the building is better." So we always play around this, they use it as an excuse to ask for a discount because they complement the building. But it's quite nice to see that there is something that relates to that.
My God, that is a fabulous story. And we did not talk about this because we had a quick chat before we did the recording. And my God, that is an Italian architect working in the UK, designing in a very significant building for Ferrari. That's got to be a dream client, isn't it?
Oh
For
no, it
you?
wasn't. It was a nightmare. And I don't mind if Ferraris listen. No, but nightmare in sense is beautiful. I learned a lot
Yeah. Okay.
because they have. I tell you this. They have this 6 meter by 3 meter screen, a video wall
Mm,
that they
mm,
use to project the chassis of the car in 2D. They rotate it around on this wall
mm,
in scale 1:1, so they can see all the
mm,
details as in the
mhm,
real car. So we used this wall to project the building as we designed it. We did
mhm.
28 variation to the design. So I counted one by one. So every time we come back with a new variation, the team already expected that there was something going on. But eventually we got there. We optimized the building. They're very keen on every detail to make sure that also we stay within budget. And then we
Mm.
managed to do that. So it's good looking, but also we stayed on budget.
I suppose, yeah, because the exacting standards of a company like Ferrari, who are, have got engineering at the heart of it, but also this amazing flair for design. I would imagine they were very particular,
Yeah, and,
in
and
terms
they
of,
are
yeah.
so scared that a building you designed for them vaguely resemble another building designed by another architect somewhere else. So there is
Wow.
this dedicated team on copyrights that basically run your design to see all similarities.
Wow.
And
Okay.
this define how we basically we need to have solid foundation in the reason why we design it in a specific way rather than improvising an answer just because it looks good. So every line, everything was motivated in such a way that it was just one of a kind building. And then at the end of the exercise, they forced me to sign commercial paper in case, they give this building to Lego one day, and so they wanted to retain all the business commercial rights. Of course, they couldn't do it on the intellectual rights. But I basically need to release all other rights that you can possibly imagine. So it's quite an industry when it comes to working for
That
one of those famous brands.
yeah, that's fascinating. Is there, by the way, is there a picture of this one on your website?
Yes, there is a
There
couple of
is. Okay.
photographs, and on
Yeah.
internet is flooded. And
Is it?
luckily,
Okay.
our PR agency did a good job. So that building is pretty much associated to our brand.
Great. We'll make sure we put a link on the
It's
some of the
called
podcast
Ferrari
links.
Centro Stile, so it's the center where they
Okay.
style the cars.
Fantastic. What a great example. Let's just go back though, a couple of steps back to the mixed use, and let's talk about something very different quickly. Because you mentioned Morocco and in particular Casablanca, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah, somewhere that is significant mixed use. And I guess as an architect, you're dealing with all of these different, not just a particular building. We've had quite a few architects on the podcast. Typically, they've been focused on residential or refurbishment, or with WWP, they're perhaps similar to you, which they've done some large scale
Yes.
infrastructure type projects. Yeah, very well known. What is it in particular you love about these? Because it's very multi-dimensional, isn't it? All of these different things you have to work
They
with.
are.
Yeah,
So there are a few things that you need to control from day one. The first one, it's almost like an Emmental cheese from Switzerland is full of holes. So when you have different functions that are one on top of the other, you still need to get up there. So the only way to do it besides stairs is to put lifts, and this creates shafts and big holes throughout all the floors below. So you lose a lot of rentable efficiency. So you lose a lot of rentable area for other uses. So you need to control those ratio between how much you can rent and how much you have to give as common area really carefully from day one. The second part is the ability to multiply what we call multiplication of the ground floor. So having transfer floors or terraces, anything that gives you the feel upper in the level that you regain the ground floor you lost. So this is also from an environmental point of view, from an urban planning point of view, it's really good because building occupy land. And if you find a way of rolling the roofs, not to put mechanical, electrical equipment to ventilate the building, but if you use, you find other space for those particular rooms, and you can still keep and safeguard the roofs and the terraces, that's when you really start creating a vertical village. And is a second key part to make sure that you have a multitude of meeting place areas and not all concentrated in the same place. Then once you do that, you can stimulate bars and restaurants, relaxed area, tennis tables on the side, and all the fun bits that, of course, let you forget that your life fully evolves around work. So you find your areas where you feel more human. And these are
you,
probably the key that gives success to those buildings.
you spoke about projects in North Africa, in Europe. I think also China, Beijing, Shanghai. Is that right as
Yes,
well?
you remember well. Good memory, Matt.
And very diverse places. But how does that diverse nature of this? Well, a question for you: population, culture, economics, maybe design. How does that inform, or what is some of the challenges or similarities, perhaps, in designing in such diverse parts of the world?
Yeah, well, the challenges are quite a few. I mentioned two or three. The first one is the market habits. So, for instance, if you have a restaurant or an office space, you need to make sure that in not only in that country, but in that city and in that particular location, you are designing to the right brief. So the first challenge is to get a good brief. The more detailed it is, the better it is. You need to know almost each function, each use, the space that it occupies, and maybe the level where it should go. Offices on the upper level pays more rent than a hotel. The room is always the same rate, whatever is the floor.
Right.
So you need to, it's having a good brief, very well detailed is the first challenge. The second one is regulatory. So you have completely different fire regulation, escape
Right.
routes in one country than another. So you need
Yeah.
to ally to local consultants. That's the answer to that, and make sure that they have a lot of experience in that particular field.
Yeah.
The third is more of an opportunity than a challenge. It's a cultural opportunity. So is where odd things happen and you discover them. Like I give you some easy example. In the Middle East, the prayer room is compulsory in every building. And
Of
of
course.
course,
Yeah.
male, female needs to be separated. That means that toilet and
Yeah.
ambulation needs to be separate. So this is really culture, in this case,
Hmm.
religion
Hmm.
driven. But then it gives you fabulous opportunities because you need to understand how the culture is evolving. For instance, designing in Saudi Arabia 5 years ago is completely different to the design you can do nowadays, where way more things are allowed. Before, families and single male were totally segregated, and now it's all kind of happily mixed together. So this is a completely different design. But all of it put together makes it, the beauty of the industry. The fact that
Yeah.
there is a new problem you try to resolve,
Yeah.
not always successfully, I must say. So the key is to listen a lot to the community, to the clients, to fix your mistakes, and not to be arrogant, in pretending that you have all the knowledge in your pocket, but go humbly and learn a lot while you do things.
Yes. And I imagine, I mean, just talking to you, David, I imagine that would come across in spades. You strike me as a very kind of humble. You've got amazing, all these
Yeah.
amazing achievements, but you come
Well,
over as very, very humble.
thank
Tell
you.
me, tell me a little bit about, because these sound significant, big projects. How many of these typically do you do, or can you handle a year?
We handle maybe one new very large scale
Mm,
project per year, no more than
mm,
that. Each
mm.
one of these projects lasts between 5 and 10 years. So that gives you the idea. There is a little bit of overlap, but say the design part contextually normally is 1 year, but in reality it takes 2 years to design the various stages of the design from the early concept to a more detailed and tenderable design. So it takes a couple of years. Let's say every 2 years, perhaps there is a new project coming in of this scale, and it takes a big part of the studio, probably 25-30% of the workforce we have. The rest is all come and go. Some projects, I would say, probably a good 1/3 to 40% of the project don't see the light of day. They stop one way or another for planning issues or finance issues is a
Yeah.
big one. And this is also an unspoken truth of the architectural world. There are a lot of projects that also design competition that you cannot win, that then don't go ahead, but
Yeah.
it would have been sometimes fabulous project to realize.
Yes, this one I hear a lot about. I've learned a lot about architecture, and we've had 4 or 5 architects on now, and yeah, that seems to be a big challenge. Yeah, managing the workforce, the resourcing levels. Um, as these projects go on hold or come back on plan, etc. It's a big challenge. How do you how do you manage that? So you might have win this amazing big project, 5 years. You must be like great, we've got this locked in for, a significant amount of time. And then how do you do when you get to the end of that 5 years? Are you starting to, how do you plan for the next
The
role coming in?
key,
How do you, yeah,
yeah, traditionally in architectural practice, and ours is no difference. Most of the work, the new projects, and possibly also new clients that you pursue come from the partners. So one way is to try and make as many partners as you can in the practice, because the more people you have that have a specific joy in bringing in new work, not only for themselves, but actually to feed the studio, the better it is for the architectural practice. What we are doing is, after we made a few mistakes, there was our moment in history, maybe some 10 years ago, when, we touch a project and we sign a contract. So we were very fortunate and very, very busy. To such a point that as an entrepreneur, you start thinking that you are a constant winner and nobody is. So what you need to do and make sure is that you don't over employ people and you end up with, people you cannot really provide for. So how were we doing this second time around, if you like, to avoid making the same mistake is building up a commercial team. So you try to structure as much as possible the number of design competition you do. Partly are invited only competitions, maybe 5 or 6 architects. So the level of risk is lower, of course. Some are open competitions, and maybe you do a couple of those per year. So that's one part. And then you do conferences in key markets. You need to go to a market that is hot, but also a market where you can sell unique selling points of the practice. So you need to do a lot of studies in make sure that you don't waste your time in a market that would never pay you back. So
yeah,
it does require intelligence, and
yeah,
the more of this you do, the more you create a solid platform for the entire practice.
yeah. Let's turn just back to the UK for a minute. And when you have all this experience internationally, when you do work on projects or you hear of the industry in the UK, what are some of the things? I mean, clearly we've got great architects, we've got great buildings, we do a lot of things really well here. What are some of the things you'd love to see here as best practice that perhaps we don't do so well in the UK that you've seen in other markets? That could be
I'm,
around,
I'm
yeah, the planning or
No,
yeah,
of course. I'm quite fond of the UK market compared to the other markets. But what I like to see more of is more of a cultural thing, is to have a little bit more opening and curiosity for experimentation. Because the UK market and tends to create loyal friends. I'm a very loyal person myself, so I find very comfortable. But I quite like when our clients say, look, we want to sound out fresh new ideas, and that's how you really keep up. Whether the UK clients they say they would like to do it, but they don't. So they're quite hermetic, and they tend to go back to the people that they know best. So the windows to penetrate the market or specific sectors are very few and far apart. And this is more of an industry theme that I think where the mentality could evolve a little bit further, and that would create a much more diversity inclusion in the building outputs. You see in the residential buildings, there is a very specific code. All the residential building looks pretty much the same.
yeah,
I don't want to flatten up, of course, the industry, but there is a lot of one way to do things. It'd be nice to have multiple way. From a planning perspective, I think it's brilliant. You always have a case officer, somebody to talk to. The listed buildings are also very well regulated.
right.
So from a landlord perspective, it's also very good. We were fortunate enough to buy the building where we sit with our holding company. So that gave also a little bit of stability to the practice, to the operating architectural practice. But So acting also as a landlord is quite good. The market is a fair market, I find. It is not necessarily overly in favor of landlord or tenants. It's quite balanced, contrary to what other people might think. Of course, there's been a lot of effort to move in that direction. But I like the approach. There is a real sense of ownership of a building, and that creates a very good economy in the real estate sector. So that part is better than other countries, I find. Like the planning is better than other countries. France is almost impossible. Italy is a nightmare. Maybe China is overregulated. So Saudi is complicated. They approve drawings on 3D renderings. So I guess AI maybe will have a big say on that in the future.
Yeah.
So every country is the same, but UK overall is a good country to work.
Let's stick with the UK for just a minute. I was going to ask this later, but let's cover it now, which is London. Um, the skyline has changed so much. I'm thinking now of the city in particular. I remember when the Gherkin was built, and I love the Gherkin. I think it's a great building. And at one point, it really stood out. Now, of course, it looks dinky. It looks really small now because you've got this
Yeah,
huge, vertical explosion, and then further down the river, you've got one Blackfriars and some other towers happening down there. Two questions for you. What do you think? Do you think we've got the balance right in terms of that high-rise development in London? Second question, what recent building is one that you particularly admire, either from a design or a functional perspective?
good one. Well, yes, it has changed a lot. I
Yeah,
witnessed all of that myself.
yeah.
We kind of look at the financial city, if you like. We're based in Tower Bridge Road, south of the river, but we see all that skyline changing around us pretty much on a monthly basis. So I subscribe to that. I think it's a good thing to go to your last part of the question. I think it shows innovation. There are, I think it's good that he's concentrating in one part of London and not all over, because this doesn't disturb the connotation that and what people have in their mind even before they arrive to London, of what London is, with all its beautiful Victorian, Edwardian architecture. And the distribution of parks, mini parks, courtyards. So it's a beautiful urban planning intricacy of London that makes
Yeah,
people walk so much overall.
yeah,
Curious without even realizing. And if you ask them, the first comment is after their visit is that they never walk so much. The second
yeah. It
one,
is. You're right. It's a
normally,
great walking city. Yeah,
great walking city is very
yeah,
walkable. And the
yeah.
second normally is that they had great food, because also the F&B variety is second to none. And
Yeah,
imagine, 30 years ago was probably one of the weakness
it
of
was.
of the entire city. So linking food and buildings, I quite like in terms of innovation. Who creates these restaurant experiences? So Heron Tower is a tower that I actually welcome, not necessarily for the architectural language. I find it a little bit blunt and understated in a way. But I like the fact that you could go from the pavement with a dedicated lift to to some of the restaurants at the top. And so that mix is very welcome. I loved the Shard from more architectural merits. I found that brave, the fact that it comes to a point in end and is all open up as a finish of the composition. I find that really, that scatter glass facade
Mm.
at the top. I find it really intelligent to make it almost go to the sky. So intellectually, it's very smart what actually this Italian architect did, Renzo Piano. But I don't like it because carries the signature of another Italian architect. I like it because I think he's a very interesting tower. Brave because normally at the top of a tower you have the most expensive floors. And unfortunately, in that particular volume, you have also the smallest footprint because it reduces you go up. Nevertheless, I love it because it affected me as a businessman. I bought the building in its real proximity, and I could really see. And I bought it just in time before the whole area exploded in terms of value. So I really reap the benefit from it, and I like to see that's one of the tower I like because it's south of the river. So there was more potential to add value, if you like, in the
Yeah,
surrounding area. And when that
yeah,
happens, is a good thing. I like
yeah.
because many other people in the surrounding area find themselves having a more valuable piece of property. And if you own it, if you rent it, probably is not so good because of course all the rents go up.
I had very mixed feelings about the Shard because I was away from the UK for a lot, and then I came back and it was sort of pretty much done. And it's
Yeah,
quite a
your
shock.
place. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's quite a shock, the scale of it and the size of it. And then having been back here for 3 or 4 years, I've sort of A got used to it. And I was also talking to another architect, and he was saying, well, some of the inspiration came from, if you look at the old maps of London, the only high-rise structures were all of the steeples of all the churches across,
yes.
this part of London. And he said that's sort of, that's a bit of an echo in the Shard. And I sort of just start to see it in a new light, from a kind of design perspective. And then I guess also, if they had sort of compromised on the size, I don't know, it would have lost something. And you're totally right. I mean, it's put sort of Southwark on the map, really, because you can see the thing from all pretty much all over London for a start, and just the economic benefit of the local area has been significant.
Yeah, and also in a way it gave further strength to London Bridge as a station, Borough
Yeah,
Market on the other
yeah,
side
that's
of the
right.
street. So
Yeah,
they were already on the map, of course, but it consolidated the trio, you know. So you have these three things happening all in one place, and it created a new center of attraction.
yeah,
So I'm affectionate to that for this number of reasons.
yeah. Let's switch completely now to go back to your practice and the sort of the business of architecture. And you got this great track record, amazing design, fantastic clients. I mean, what are your future plans for the business in terms of growth? Are you happy with where you are now? What have you got still ambition to do more? What's your ambition for the company?
Yeah, well, I don't think that any architect is happy where he is or she is at the moment at that particular time and place. Certainly is not the case for me. I'm quite an ambitious architect and professional. So, where is the plan and the future taking us is try not to do. You see, I bought out the company as an employee with a management buyout. There was another partner similar age. Back in 2002, they did the same for the other office in Canada, so we did it together. Um, and um, and we had that opportunity because the founding partner of the practice, they founded back in the late 50s, um, they basically lost the mid management along the way, so they were left with a big age gap, and that, of course, was an issue for them, but it became an opportunity for us. So what I would like to do is to resolve this issue before it's too late. So my big plan at the moment is we're only three partners, and one is the founder that founded the office in London that we called back to the business. Two operating partners, but is kind of not enough for our growth ambition. So we are like to open up to other employees to take shares in business. We are doing this with three new, very talented architects. this year. So it's happening as we speak. And in a way, it's a formula that allows them to maybe sacrifice a piece of their new salary. So some they can finance through their normal cash flow activities. They take a little bit of cutback that the business take on board to release shares to them. And this and people with also very different sets of skills. So people that, of course, are not shy to present designs to clients. One has a massive line of creativity, runs our concept team, so does all the design competition in conjunction with partners and some specialists. And one is really good in operating the business. So is the one that is managing resources when and constantly speak with finance to see how to move energies within the practice around to make sure that are constantly financially sustainable. So this is the plan: is to enlarge the partnership and then as a second step is bring on board also new talent that comes from different sector. So the second piece of the strategy is to continue our journey of diversification. It's good that that we come from a mixed use, so we have already familiarity with a number of asset classes, but it's quite nice also to have deep knowledge. So of course we have that in the retail industry, but it's nice to have, I don't know, a head of residential one day, a head of workplace, and maybe a head of education. We're doing a very nice, for a foundation, we are doing a new generation school that will be donated to a council. I cannot mention where, but it's a very interesting proposition because it's one of those technical specialist schools. So there is the art of making is really the core of the school, and all the classrooms rotate around this Agora central space. So for us, it's something totally new. We've never done anything like this before. We've been invited for our creative flair. Nevertheless, we asked permission to participate with an expert team that has this very specific experience and accepted so we're doing this together. And this I would like to do more and more often, to go deep vertically into a specific sector and do it with the experts.
Yeah, great. Okay. I hear mixed things about, the talent out there for architects. It's how do you find that at the moment, the market, finding talent, the kind of people that you need? What does that look like? Is there a shortage, or how do you attract people in?
Look, after Brexit, I was really worried
Mm,
because we had, of
hmm
course, been quite a multicultural,
Yeah.
multinational type of company. For us, it was quite easy to overall to take talents from Europe. And I was really worried. Tell you an anecdote later. But in reality, it hasn't been that bad.
Yeah.
I find architectural schools in UK to be really good,
Mm.
uh, really thorough. Each one has maybe a different approach because, of course, partners from various practices tend to go there and teach and mold the talent that they need. We plan to do the same for some of the universities. But what I find is going to the presentation of the end of part one or part two and source fresh students from there is really successful for us. We like to take fairly new people. We have a good range of seniority already in the studio, so we like to grow them within the studio. And but is not as bad as I thought. We have an office in Milan, and in Milan we basically take all talents from one single school that is the Politecnico Milan, where I graduated. And that's one of the best schools in the world. So talent there is in abundance. Unfortunately, it's very hard now to bring that talent to the UK. You have, all sorts of limitations for that.
Okay. Moving to the end of our conversation. No conversation these days cannot go without mentioning two letters, and those letters are AI. How does that show up in your world? I mean, obviously, architectural in terms of visualization. You're the kind of early adopters of 3D modeling and everything. But how does AI beyond that? Maybe how does AI show up now in architectural practices?
Yeah, well, it's improving every day. Yesterday I've asked, we have a head of innovation that is looking at AI day in, day out. He's a coder and he does all the code that you need to make different software talk to each other. And of course, a lot of these codes now are downloaded from AI. You ask and you get what you need. And I've asked him this task: can you take this hand-drawn sketch and turn it into a CGI? So put some inputs, and so we use 2 or 3 different AI platforms to do that. And fun enough, GPT is the one that gave the best result in this case. And he turned that into a CGI. And just before this nice chat with you, Matt, I'll send it to the client. I didn't say this is AI generated. I just said that this is a first scribble sketch for you to evaluate. This is what we have in mind. In reality, it is coming from our original sketch, so it's not totally generated. So I found that really good for what I need to do, and I hope I'll be able to use it a bit more moving along. But it's the very first time I do it, so it's very fresh.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah, what would have been previously just a quick sketch and an idea, a sort of casual idea, now can be sort of rendered into something that, of course, it's a long way from the finished thing, but it gives a much better sense, perhaps, of what's in your mind. And as your prompt engineering expertise gets better and better, it's going to get closer to what's in your head.
Yeah, and look, is a two-way street. So some clients they tend to be a little bit more sophisticated. They prefer the original sketch.
Right.
They can read more into it. But some others are really used to see a full 3D rendering. And if you send the sketch, they wouldn't pay the same level of attention. So that was, what I just did was the second case.
Very interesting. Super. Okay, last couple of questions. Leadership. We always finish on leadership. How do you think your leadership style has changed over the years? Maybe like the last 5, 10 years. Are you aware of yourself developing as a leader, and how does that show up?
Yeah. Well, it's a nice question. I don't know how honest one can be in answering this one. But look, I started with the typical mistake that young entrepreneurs do. Is wanted to do a little bit of everything. And your motivation and enthusiasm allow you to grow your business, but then you hit a barrier. You hit a ceiling where either you start delegating out, hiring talents, and stop with this idea that you need to go through all the job interviews. You cannot be a genius in maths and understand balance sheets inside out or strategy financially to go through very low periods. So you better talk to the expert there. You need to stop thinking that innovation is only driven by design, but is a big degree of technology. So getting the right hardware, software is other people possibly know better. Making the company secure and safe, firewalls, this, that, and the other is. So as you grow, you got to learn this. And in my case, I understood when we stopped growing. So I knew that something we didn't do right. So I guess my leadership came the hard way, learning from mistakes and making sure that I'm quite an exuberant person. I'm very motivated and empathic in a way, so people say, and you gave me the same compliments earlier on. So what this does is that in a meeting you tend to be a little bit too exciting in selling your ideas and your vision. And what you tend to do is not to listen enough to others. Of course, I do with clients. I didn't do it enough within the studio. So I to do this, I hire a co-CEO. I call it. He's normally the most junior person in the firm. And he said, look at my traits, intervene where you feel I'm crossing a line. And I was interrupted all the time during these design review meetings. So that taught me also in being a good listener also within the studio and not to be overly exuberant. And I think, and this is a never-ending journey. So
Yeah.
sometimes I respond too quickly to an email. It's better to sleep on
Uh-huh.
it. So I do the
Yes.
typical mistakes. But as you move along and some gray hair start appearing,
Yeah.
you learn your lessons.
Yes. Great. Some great examples. Very, yeah, you have a lot of self knowledge there, and reflection. What about a leader that's had a great impact on you, David? Who's been a real influence on your career, either professionally or in other ways? We've
Yeah,
had all sorts of answers to this. Yeah.
one was in an early days. So I
Mhm.
finished my master in Cal Poly in California. And at the uni there, they invited a lot of visiting professors. So once Frank Gehry came, and
Yeah.
I put a lot of hours. None of us went to sleep at night to present our design. And I was so focused on having it. So I had a small maquette model and a lot of
Yeah.
drawings. And another friend of mine from California actually used a wall of a staircase to basically do an installation. He did a little people climbing this brick wall, and in between he put pieces of design and his ideas. Frank Gehry was blown away by this.
Wow.
He said that he could really read through the thinking process, the way he wanted
Yeah.
to
Okay.
express this. He hired the guy. That is one
Wow.
of still to this day one of the directors, and that was a
Fantastic.
massive learning curve for me to say that to expand your thinking and find different media, different ways to express your idea. And Frank Gehry was my hero at that time. He just did his house with a lot of recycled materials. So I'm not, and of course the Disney Opera was under
Yes.
construction, but the project
Okay.
was in those years, so was having a lot of problems.
Right.
But his house, I absolutely love it, and he was also quite inspired by another Frank Lloyd Wright that
Yeah.
tend to design a house, and I saw his Californian ones, like
Yeah.
each room was a house, so was surrounded by gardens and visibility. So it was like every room was exploded with lots of facades, and not cut things inside the box. But
Right.
each room was an independent box, and it was cutting in around the garden. So those two guys really influenced me throughout my career, and they never left me. So until this day, he set parameters that I really feel very close to. So it's an in
Yeah.
and out design that I try to bring out in every project. The continuous flow between indoor outdoor. It's really what makes me excited.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Yeah. Yes, I was in LA a few years ago, and yeah, my friends took me down because I liked architectural photography, so they took me down to see the Disney building, and it's very impressive. And in the UK, he's done one, hasn't he? That's sort of facing or very near facing the power station in Battersea.
Yeah,
Isn't that one of his?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The you mean the power station itself?
Yes.
Or
No. Well,
yeah,
just
I
there's a building. I think it's got that kind of wavy sort of line. I think it's
that
residential.
was is a Foster building. It's a
Oh, that's
residential.
Foster's. It. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very interesting building. I
Yeah.
visited also inside when
Mm,
first time I went to meet the
mm,
guys at Foster.
mm,
Battersea Power Station I think, is brilliantly done.
mm.
I've been actually lucky enough also inside it's not really officially the headquarter in the UK because they have to have that in Ireland, but the headquarters, say, of Apple
Oh yeah.
there. So you see the lobby from the common area of the
Yeah.
station. Once you take a lift, you arrive to the atrium that is only visible if you visit the Apple store. Sorry, not the store, the Apple office.
Yeah.
And that is mind blowing. So it's almost like entering into another power station itself
Oh really?
and little terrace garden. So I think that is a piece of art. Designed again
Wow.
by
Yeah.
Fox. So that are
Ah,
good
okay.
practice.
Yeah, yeah. Love to see that. Love to see that. Great. Well, listen, that's been absolutely fascinating. We could talk for a lot longer, but I won't keep you. Best of luck with your future projects, your plans, the team. I love the team strategy, by the way, the specialization, the talent. You've really thought about where do you want to take the practice and what roles do you need there and how are you going to get the roles and how are you going to construct the organization. So best of luck with
Thank
that.
you.
And thank you. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks,
Great.
Matt.
Thanks a lot.